When learning something new, our goal is often to get to the point where we can apply a skill consistently before moving on to the next thing. But if we stop learning once we're consistently able to do it, we're actually missing out on half of our true potential. Let's do some learning. Benjamin Bloom was an American educational psychologist driven to understand how people learn. While working in behavioural sciences, Bloom's exploration into a reliable method for teaching and testing students led him to discover distinct stages of learning that take place. With each stage of learning relying upon the last, Bloom explains how we as learners start our learning journey by initially remembering a concept, then moving on to understanding how that concept connects into the bigger picture, before taking that knowledge and applying it to a given situation to complete a task. This staged approach to learning something new seems pretty automatic and reliable to us. Back when I started teaching myself JavaScript a couple of years ago, without a clue what I was doing, I remember just familiarizing myself with basic parts of the language, and once spending time with those basic concepts each day, linkages of meaning started to form in my mind, revealing how to actually create functions. And once I began applying this newfound knowledge regularly, I was able to combine functions together to eventually build a working computer program. The first half of Bloom's taxonomy is where we often find ourselves spending most of our time, getting to the apply stage and then applying the skill regularly, expecting that we will naturally improve over time through consistent repetition. However, when looking at Bloom's pyramid, we start to see we're missing something here. Apply is in the middle of the learning journey, but almost signifies a plateau of capability, the halfway point, a place of consistent repetition resulting in average reward or output. And herein lies the problem. The point where we start improving at something doesn't actually happen when we reach the apply stage, only after it. If we end our learning journey once we're able to just apply a skill consistently, our ability to improve at that skill will actually stop, like dead in its tracks. It's kind of like reading a book, spending some time getting to know the hero as they build up their capability and begin to overcome challenges they're facing, and then just closing the book before it starts getting good. Does the hero of our story make it? Or perhaps more importantly, do we? You're reminded of this regularly when you become a lifelong learner, that just because you're able to do something consistently doesn't mean that we're doing it well or efficiently. So if we're relying on consistency and repetition to get better, we'll only ever reach that plateau and never improve. The upside, however, is that we all have the capability to move beyond the average, and where we have the will, Bloom has the way clearly outlined for us. To become efficient in a particular skill or discipline requires three things: the ability to analyze, the ability to evaluate, and the ability to create something new. When we analyze, we look to break down our existing knowledge or process to reveal the structure behind our way of working. If we're working on ourselves, this could be as simple as keeping a daily journal of our activity progress and then examining the data for the patterns that arise. If we're teaching someone else, we'd encourage them to capture and collate their own data points and have them report on what they find important, interesting, or out of place. In either case, once we have data to work from, outliers and patterns will emerge that will lead us to question why things may be occurring in a particular way, laying the groundwork for understanding what's working and what isn't. When we evaluate, we recognize through reflective practice the value of each stage of our thought process and alternatives to the current situation. By stepping back to see the bigger picture, we're able to weigh in and critique the path we're taking alongside the outcomes we're experiencing. If we're working on ourselves, this could involve exploring an opinion we hold, providing reasons for or against why we're doing something in a certain way. If we're teaching someone else, we'd encourage them to unpack their thinking and develop an argument that questions their value or the particular steps in their process. For me, when developing e-learning products for clients, I used to storyboard each slide of learning content before getting stakeholder sign-off and progressing to build. From applying the skill for so long, however, I soon found drafting a storyboard and building a functioning prototype were taking me a similar amount of time, that in most cases, building a prototype of the client's product to gather their feedback directly was more efficient, cutting development time in half and creating opportunities for richer client feedback because they could see their product in action rather than having to imagine it. Evaluation helps us to separate the required from the unnecessary so we can optimize our future approach. When we create, we take these data points and insights from our analysis and evaluation and use them to generate ideas that can be formed into something new. If we're working on ourselves, we'd look for opportunities to investigate, prototype and test new ways of working and share them with other people. If we're teaching someone else, we'd invite them to rework an existing body of knowledge or assemble new knowledge by combining different disciplines in ways that haven't been explored yet and have the result presented as a tangible product. As a designer of learning, I often find myself regularly deconstructing learning theories and frameworks to see what makes them tick, then reassembling them in ways that draw upon other theories and my own ideas and share the results of that process right here on this channel. We can think of the peak of Bloom's pyramid as signifying the drop-off of people willing to rise to the challenge to get from remembering through to creation. Creation starts our feedback loop. Once it begins, we're able to analyse, evaluate and create all over again, testing our interpretation of knowledge through creation and iteration, reaching levels of capability we didn't realise were possible. But if we take a moment to flip the pyramid to see things from a different perspective, we start to see a representation of increasing life possibilities we have available to us the further we push past the apply stage. Getting ourselves learning to reach the apply stage is really only the warm-up round for getting us started on our learning journey. Whether it's teaching ourselves or others, moving past application is where things get truly interesting. We can start to deconstruct and analyse what we're doing, evaluate and reflect on what's working and what isn't. We can implement changes, become more capable, and invent new ways of working that rid ourselves of inefficiencies so we can pursue new skills and knowledge. It's by going through this process that we understand how much we really know and what we still need to learn. Leave a like if you found the video useful and click the subscribe and bell buttons for us to continue learning together. But until then, I'm Joel and that's your learning for today. You're welcome.